In this video, we're going to take a look at a green ink by Akkerman, their number 27. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a playlist of all of the green inks here on the channel. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen. We do see some fairly decent spots of shading going on, like quick goes lighter to darker and jumps goes lighter to darker. The medium even shows some shading, with brown going darker to lighter, quick going dark to light to dark. The extra fine is certainly lighter than the stub, and the medium's the same tone as the extra fine. The extra fine took 7 seconds to dry and the medium took 12. Now the scrubby for both do show some color variation. We're definitely getting it in the writing, and I do believe you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then, a Pilot Metropolitan with a 1.0 stub was inked up, used for day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding, very minor ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is certainly lighter than the stub, and the medium's the same tone as the extra fine. The extra fine took 11 seconds to dry and the medium took 19. Now the scrubby for both shows no color variation. We're really not getting it in the writing, and the smear test I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this very bright green at the bottom, and this really, truly nice blue. I'd kind of like to see that blue as its own ink. The one on the right is let dry for 10 minutes before it's put into water. And we really don't see much difference between the two of them, meaning we don't expect to see much resistance here. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. We have no bleeding and no ghosting. Now we have no feather, spread, halo sheen, no real shading. That's very surprising to me, but there's no shading here, and it was on the Clairfontaine. The extra fine is much lighter than the stub, and the medium is just a hair darker than the extra fine. The extra fine took 7 seconds to dry, while the medium took 11, and the scrubby for both do show a tiny bit of color variation, but it's not really coming through in the writing. The smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, do not use this in a note-taking situation if you need to go back and highlight, because you are going to destroy all of your information. Now that's obvious when you look at what happened in the chromatography and here with the water. Water is completely reactivating and lifting it off the page. Pen flush, you can't do more than remove all of it, and a 1/3 bleach solution, same story. Now, it did only take water to get this out of my pen, as you would expect. The next writing sample is done on Moji paper. No bleeding, some minor ghosting here with the medium. I'm seeing it, I don't think it's going to come through on camera. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen, just a couple of spots of shading. The K in quick looks a little bit darker. The looks a little darker than what's around it. The extra fine is noticeably lighter than the stub. The medium's the same tone as the stub. Extra fine took 4 seconds to dry, while medium took 5. The scrubby of the extra fine does show some color variation, and there are some spots of it up here, while the medium showed very little, but we didn't see any. And the smear test I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, and the realm of normal was 2.1 to 2.9. Akkerman's number 27 had a viscosity of 1.53, making this a wet ink. If you're interested in how the viscosity and all of that's done, then down in the description is a link to that video. Now, the next writing sample is done on moleskin paper. Notoriously bad with fountain pens, I don't see all of these little bleed spots that are occurring with the extra fine as really bad. I don't think you could use the back of the page with them. You certainly couldn't with the medium, but you're not destroying the page underneath. I actually see this as very good here. The medium, of course, leads to a lot of ghosting from it. No real ghosting for the medium or the extra fine, just a bunch of show through. Now we have a ton of feathering. It's tiny feathering all over the medium. I don't see that stopping someone from using it. We do have some tiny feathering that's going on with the extra fine. Certainly not going to stop it. A lot of tiny feathers on Fox, on jumps, on over. It's all over, but it's not unmanageable for this paper. The extra fine is much lighter than the stub. It took 5 seconds to dry. The scrubby shows a tiny bit of color variation, but we don't get any. And the smear test, you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, and the realm of normal was 13 to 21 seconds. Akkerman's number 27 had an average dry time of 11 seconds, meaning it dries a bit faster than normal. The last writing sample is done on 20-pound copy paper. Now we expect a lot of bleed heavy into the paper, which we get, leads to a lot of ghosting. Here in the medium, this is where our problem occurs. This created spots on the page underneath, so you wouldn't want to use a medium because you're going to destroy the next page, and in neither case can you use the back of the page. For both of them, we have a ton of feathering that's going on. The medium has a tremendous amount of spread, as does the extra fine. They both move at least one size. That medium writes more like a broad, where the extra fine looks more like a medium. There's no halo, no sheen, no shade. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the medium. It took 1 second to dry. The scrubby shows a tiny bit of color variation, but there's none here, and you can't smear it, so you don't have to worry about that. Instead of finding inks that look like Akkerman's number 27, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went with a nice brown ink from Monteverde, their Moonstone. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those playlists. So what do I think of Akkerman's number 27? It's a perfectly acceptable green that has moments of shading and good tone variation. I prefer the green that Akkerman has in their Dutch Masters series, though. I find it much nicer in my opinion. But overall, this is a very good green, and it's very straightforward. So what nib and pen will give the best writing experience with this ink? It's a very straightforward green, and I think while it could go with just about any pen, I really did prefer it from a medium flow, medium nib. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at Noodler's Purple Heart.